You booked it, episode 158. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Every episode is a masterclass on how to move your career forward. Do you want to take your career to the next level? As a listener of this podcast, I am opening up the opportunity for you to work one-on-one with me to build the foundation of what you need to create a successful career in today's world. Regardless if you're starting out or you've been doing this a while, we will go in depth on everything that actually creates long-term success. If you're interested, head over to youbookeditpodcast.com/coaching or simply click the link in the description of this episode and let's chat. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Lisa Finegold. Are you ready for this, Lisa?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Lisa has performed all over the place on some of the USA's biggest stages. Credits include Broadway, the original Broadway cast of Head Over Heels, Rock of Ages. Off-Broadway includes Trip of Love. National tours include Hamilton and Wicked. Favorite regional credits include West Side Story, In the Heights, The Donkey Show, and on TV, she's been seen on Modern Love. Lisa is grateful for 10 plus years in the theater industry of performing and teaching future generations of young artists. Lisa is a proud graduate of the Boston Conservatory, where she earned a BFA in musical theater with an emphasis in dance. Lisa, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Sure. Thanks for reading my resume. Yes, my name is Lisa Finegold. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm currently based out of New York City. And in the entertainment industry, I'm a dancer, singer, actor person.
Beautiful. And let's dig into this first section here. And Lisa, of course, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a huge quote person. I've definitely heard quotes throughout my life that hit me in the moment and then just fled. I think the way I receive information is pretty fluid, but I will say Make It Work, as spoken by Tim Gunn of Project One Runway, has really stuck with me throughout the years.
For sure. And can you expand on that a little bit on how you've applied that into your career?
Sure. I think I often apply this quote just in my daily life based on survival. But in the industry, I do think just making whatever comes your way work is very important as actors and certainly as people. I think a lot of times in the entertainment industry, sometimes things don't pan out exactly the way you think they would. But I think it's really important in the moment just to go with the flow, make it work to the best of your ability.
Yeah, for sure. This industry is very unique as compared to most other every single job that exists. We're always on our toes. We're always just having to roll with the punches because so much of it is out of our control, right?
Absolutely. I think most of my career has been spent as a dance captain in a swing. And that's sort of the mantra of my life is just whatever comes at me. I just have to make it work no matter what, because at the end of the day, there is still an audience out there and they paid the same price every single night. So they should get a great show every single night, no matter what happens.
For sure. And I don't know about you, but I've been on shows where sometimes I think people can lose sight of that. That, yeah, we're here every night delivering the same show and giving it. And, it's easy to get down sometimes when an audience might not be as energetic as the previous nights, right? But to always keep that in mind that, hey, everyone has shown up, they've paid their money, they've come to be entertained. And that's your job, is to always give it everything every single time you go out. And that's hard to do. But I'm sure you've experienced times when people are maybe a little bit negative about an audience and things like that. Is that true?
Absolutely. Being on tour is such a great example of this because everywhere you go, the audiences are different and everybody's going to receive information in a different way. So, for an example, I think we were in Naples, Florida, performing Hamilton, and the audience was so quiet. And I remember my fellow castmates getting really down backstage about it, being like, what's going on? Are they out there? Do they hate us? And I had heard from my stage manager or company manager maybe that they had been milling around at intermission. And they said that the audience was so excited about the show. Everyone was talking, but during the show, they were very, very quiet. And it's just a
Mm.
difference. It's almost like a regionalism. Sometimes you have an older crowd that's not as vocal as a younger crowd, but it doesn't mean that they're not enjoying it just as much or even more. People just process and react differently. And as performers, I think it's really important that we don't let that sort of mess with us. We don't let it interfere with our stoicism, and we're there to do the job and give the best performance we can, no matter what.
Well said.
Thank you.
And let's get into this next section here. And Lisa, of course, you are an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. And I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer and doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I think the biggest challenge that I face in my career is an ongoing one, and that's just the challenge of being a dance captain slash swing. I've
Mm.
spent most of my career in that role, and it continues to be the greatest challenge, but also the most rewarding. Because I think in order to be a swing, you have to face the fact that you'll almost never have a perfect show, and you have to be okay with that. Like it's bound to happen. There's no way around it. Even if you work as hard as you possibly can and study as much as you possibly can, things will happen in the moment that'll surprise you and you'll mess up. And I think that the real test in those moments is how you treat yourself when you mess up. And I've learned that the best thing you can do is just to forgive yourself and move on. It's really the only option because if you spend any sort of time getting down and beating yourself up about a mistake you've made, you've already lost the next minute to 2 minutes of focus and concentration that you needed for the next part
Mm.
of the show. So it's really a personal test for me all the time. And I'm not talking like huge mistakes. Obviously, if you're in a show and you're a swing, you at this point you've done the homework, your tracks. But the spontaneous aspect of theater, things are going to happen. You just can't control everything. There's always going to be some weird variable that does something, or maybe your shoe gets stuck on the stage, or things are just always going to happen. And the biggest challenge for me is just to accept it, forgive myself, and move forward and say, you know what, I'm going to be a little bit more aware next time so I don't make that little mistake again. It's just those things. And obviously, it's really challenging. Of course, I've had nights where maybe I did a track for the first time and I stumbled around and it wasn't good. And obviously, you're going to get down about that. But I think the challenge is truly to forgive yourself and move forward because it's the only way to keep growing.
I think you said it perfectly with how you treat yourself when you do mess things up is really the most important part of it. And I agree. I have also been lucky enough to be a swing for much of my career, doing loads of different tracks, and not just different tracks simultaneously, but also being in different shows simultaneously. And it's crazy hard and getting things confused, and your brain gets twisted, right? But I think you also said I don't think you'll ever have a perfect show, and I think you're 100% right. There's always something
Hmm.
that doesn't go 100%, but it's also something I really enjoy about the swing life is it's always exciting. You always get to play a different role, a different character, a different vantage of whatever the show might be, and I think that's really exciting.
Definitely. Those fun nerves that you get, they never go away. And I think
Mm.
sometimes people who get to do a show 8 times a week I think because sometimes of that repetitive nature, they sometimes lose the thrill of what's actually happening and what they're doing. So I find as a swing that I never really lose the thrill because it almost feels like opening night every time I do it. And I'm actually very grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. I was in a show called Jubilee in Vegas, and I was not a swing in this show. And what I found is my body got really exhausted. It was a big dance show, but it got really exhausted doing the same things all the time. No matter how much I could stretch or roll out or warm up, it just kind of kept going backwards, my body and my physicality. Whereas I find when I'm swinging, it kind of uses my whole body. So I get a little bit of everything all the time. So my body doesn't always feel that repetitive nature of whatever the choreography or whatever it might be.
For sure. I think that being a swing can be a much more sustainable career as far as injuries go, especially in the world of dance, because you're right. When you do repetitive movements over and over again, you're bound to injure yourself. It's just that is the human body. We can't pound on the same leg over and over again and expect that nothing's going to happen. So,
Right.
in that way, I'm very grateful that I've been able to swing a lot because it has kept me more free from injury than I would
Yeah.
be otherwise. And especially now that I'm, starting to get into the older bracket of the dance world, which happened very quickly all of a sudden without me realizing it. But now I'm like, oh, wait, I'm in a great position to be able to continue to do what I love and not hurt myself.
Yeah. And that's so important. Taking care of your body for the longevity of your career. Because also on that, there's a lot of people sometimes that you'll see, and I've been certainly been someone to do this, where I physically put myself into a position where it's unsustainable, right? Whether that's
Mhm.
physically dancing or vocally doing something that, yeah, I can do this a handful of times, but you're really not benefiting yourself. And I think a really good takeaway with that is to realize if you ever are in those situations, to see what you can do to not be or to alter things and have the discussions with the people you need to, because really no show, no one contract is worth destroying your career over. It's all about longevity and how do you create an entire career out of this industry.
Absolutely. I remember one time I was in a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat that was on tour, and I was not a swing, I was an ensemble member. And I was swung out one night and I got to watch the show. And I remember just being enlightened by the experience because I remember feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm working so hard in these particular moments and no one's watching that. That's not even what's lit. And I remember thinking that, oh, I can make some serious changes to how I approach this show in order to keep me more sane, more healthy. Because sometimes when you get the perspective of the audience, it really changes your idea of what's going on. And it doesn't mean that, you mark or you do things the way they're not supposed to be done. It's just taking that like little bit of effort to switch your energy and preserve in the places that you can while still honoring the authenticity of what you're doing.
Oh, that was so well said. And I think you're spot on with that. So good. Thank you.
Thank you. Hmm.
And let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think my spotlight moment came really early in life for me. I've known since I was about 6 years old that I wanted to be a performer. I fell into it because I saw my older brother playing trumpet in a children's jazz band at the time when I was like 5. And I just remember thinking like, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that. I auditioned for the band and the band leader was like, you have to play an instrument as well as sing. You can't just sing. So I said, okay, then I'll just play trumpet like my brother.
Yeah.
So I started in the band and I was playing trumpet and I was singing. And I found out that I was truly a terrible trumpet player. But I really, really enjoyed singing in front of an audience. It just felt right to me. That kind of felt like home. And from there, I got my mom to put me in dance classes, and then I started doing shows at my community theater. And it was really through the dance training and the community theater shows that I knew at a very young age that I wanted to dance on Broadway. That's been the dream since I was really little.
Oh, so cool. And let's piggyback on that real quick and talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I can definitely there's no doubt in my mind what it was. It was the day that I learned that I was gonna make my Broadway debut in Rock of Ages, and it's funny
Yeah.
that you say if auditions or callbacks are a part of that experience because it wasn't. After college, I almost immediately went on the non-union tour of Rock of Ages, and I did it for about 14 months. I had a fantastic time, one of the most fun shows I'll ever be a part of, and also the group of people that I was on tour with. It was just a family. It was an incredible experience. And after about 14 months, I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to move to New York City in pursuit of my equity card. It's time to move on. So I moved to the city and I'm, doing the grind, auditioning a ton. And a lot of times I went in for the Rock of Ages Broadway company and I auditioned and it always went well. But what they needed in the production at the time never seemed to line up with who I was. I
Mm.
just wasn't the right type for the roles that they had been looking for. So I was just auditioning. I was working a serving job in Astoria where I lived. And I remember one night I was working a shift and I got a call and a voicemail from Matt DiCarlo. And I remember thinking this was really weird because Matt DiCarlo was the associate director of the Rock of Ages tour that I went out on. And he was also the stage manager of the Rock of Ages Broadway company at the time. So I was like, I don't know why he would be calling me. That seems weird. It wasn't like I
Yeah.
had just had an audition for them or anything. So I took a break and I snuck outside and I called him back. And he basically said, "Hey, Lisa, Rock of Ages is looking to bring on another vacation swing to the roster, and we think you'd be really good for this position. Are you interested?" And I think
Whoa.
I silently screamed to myself for, like 30 seconds. And then I said, "Of course I'd be interested." I was so
Yeah,
excited.
composed and yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually the first time that I would be asked to be a swing, which is kind of interesting now looking back on that. And it was also tricky because at that time I had learned that I had actually booked the tour of Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So I knew that I was going out on tour, but at the same time, a vacation swing is kind of an interesting position because you're not on contract. You basically learn what you need to learn. And then if they need you, they need you. And if they don't, they don't. And if they need you and you're not available, that's kind of okay because you're not under contract in the first place. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out on tour. And if they need me to come back and make my Broadway debut, I'm going to do that. And that ended up happening about 6 months after I left. And fortunately, I was able to take a leave of absence from my tour and come back and make my Broadway debut. And that was about 3 months before Rock of Ages closed on Broadway. So I'm so grateful that I was able to do it and have that experience because I just love that show. It's really stuck with me as being one of the most fun experiences on stage I think I'll ever have.
I love that show. It's so much fun. The music, everything is such a great show. And what I really like about that story is that there weren't any auditions, right? You'd already been in the show, you'd already been on tour with the show, you'd already developed the relationships and done good work for the production team, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's huge. It's a huge, huge, huge takeaway that how this career progresses for us is there's no cookie cutter solution, right? And that's a big part of why I created this podcast as well, is to really highlight, look, there are so many ways to navigate this career and to help people find their own path and see if there's some similarities that you can latch onto by speaking people like you. And I love that it really does come down to you being a great person to work with, doing good work on tour, and then developing those relationships that you need to develop. It's about being a nice person and having integrity with your job.
It's so true. I always say that this career is cumulative because no matter what you're doing, you're making an impression on people. And for a long time in the city, for me, I think the real work was about showing up to every single dance call that I could and just doing the best job I could and just representing myself as a person that you'd want to work with.
Hmm.
Because even if you don't get the job, that sort of energy, I believe, and that sort of trust adds up within the casting community and the creative community. So I think as soon as you earn your stripes and they say, you know what, every time we see this girl, she shows up, she seems cool. When the time comes that they actually have something that is right for you, there'll be no doubt in their mind that you're the person for the job because you've already proved to be a trustworthy, talented person who's ready. I think. So that's how I go about it. If I don't get a job, it's not a big deal. As long as I represented myself to the best of my ability, I know that at some point it will add up and I will get another job or the best job that I've ever had. You just never know. So I think you just have to come at everything with that sort of approach of I'm just going to be the best me. I'm going to do this the best I can and hopefully it all works out at some point.
Yeah. You said success is cumulative. And I think right there sums all of that up. And I think it's so good. I think everyone, you should just rewind just a little bit and listen to that little section because it's so important and so integral to how this career works. Thank you for that, Lisa. And let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And it's a crazy weird time, right? We're amidst this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Pre-COVID, I was on tour with Hamilton as the dance captain swing. So right up until everything shut down, that's where I was. And I'm really looking forward to when we can all get back on the road and back on Broadway and make theater again. I do think that we're really on the edge of a brand new era in so many ways, including theater. And I just really hope that theater will be the driving force in creating a more equitable, inclusive industry. And I really hope that the rest of America will follow. And I also hope that the makers and the creators of theater, I really hope that going forward, they're going to think long and hard about what kind of things the American audience needs to see, because I feel like there's a huge responsibility there and they've got such a great opportunity to be progressive and change things for the better. So I just really hope that happens. I do think it all starts from above. It's all trickle down. So I'm really hoping for some more inclusivity in theater owners, casting directors, choreography, because I really do believe it comes from that level. But I'm just so excited when we can all get going again, because I do believe in my heart that everybody knows this and we're all just like waiting for it to go, just waiting for the race to start. So that's very exciting. Looking forward.
I agree as well that you said the theater community will be the driving force of this. And I think that's very true because we are already on board. We as a community are very vocal about needing change, but at the same time, we still need the creators, the producers, the money of this industry as well, the investors to be on board with that. And I think it's going to be changing. I feel I'm optimistic of it. Let's
Me
say
too.
that.
Hmm.
And I was speaking with Benjamin Simpson the other day, classmate of yours, yes?
Yeah.
And because he's been producing, right? And his sentiment was like, hey, you know what's really cool is that I now have time to read all these scripts and to listen to all this music that I normally wouldn't have ever had the opportunity to because now I have the time to. So I think between the movement to have everything be more equitable throughout the entire arts industry, that combined with the producers and the creators to have more exposure to new content and new stories, I think it's going to be a really great combination moving forward. And hopefully, some really great stuff gets made.
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine all the plays and music and movies that are being written right now? I do feel like
Yeah.
there's going to be a sort of renaissance because we've all kind of been in this state of hibernation. But I do think that probably a lot of really important special work is being done, and I just can't wait to see it.
Yeah, for sure. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm so ready. Okay.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I don't think I ever felt held back from committing to a career in theater, but the thing that's held me back the most in pursuit of this career has been comparing myself to other people and the destruction that does to your self-esteem.
Oh, that has come up so many times
Oh, yeah.
throughout this interview process of this podcast. It is, I think, one of the most toxic things that you can do to yourself, and it's clearly something that pretty much everyone that's been having successful careers in this industry also agrees with. It's hard to do, right? Especially with social media, and we
Hmm.
can go on these Instagram binges of just the endless news feed of scrolling and comparison and go down the rabbit holes that just really don't serve us. And I'm glad that you also brought that up because it's come up a time and time again. And it's clearly something that is very much worth paying attention to. And listen to everyone, people, please. That comparison is not what you want to do for yourself in this industry. It's just toxic.
It is. And I love that you say it's something to pay attention to because that's the truth of it. I mean, we're only human. Those thoughts come in almost automatically. I think it's just human nature to compare yourself to what you around you, but you just have to be aware and pay attention and remember to shut it off because it's just not helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Being self aware and noticing in yourself when those not good feelings start creeping in as you're just thinking about whatever, or if you are on social media somewhere and you start feeling just crap about everything, notice that and put it down.
Hmm.
Stop. Do
Hmm.
something else.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the second question, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The best piece of advice I ever received was when I was swinging Wicked and I was about to go on in a track that I had never done before. And one of my castmates could tell that I was very nervous. And she turned to me and she said, "No matter what happens tonight, you can't destroy Wicked. I promise you, no matter what you do, you can't single handedly ruin this show." And a light bulb just went off for me. I was like, oh, she's right. I can't just, no matter what, even if I have the worst show of my life, I fall out of every turn, I don't make my costume changes. Most people in the audience aren't going to know the show is still going to exist. So that really helped to take the pressure off and remind myself like it is live theater and that is so important, but it's 3 hours and then it's over and then we go to bed and tomorrow's a brand new day. And that was really important for me.
I really like that. That's such good advice. You know what I often will tell myself is if I'm getting really nervous about things, I say, well, the time's going to come, the time's going to go, and something will have happened. And I just go out and do it because at that point, that always comes with the caveat that I've prepared, right?
Right.
And that I'm ready to go do the thing. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen. So let's go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And the third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Again, it's always challenging myself not to compare myself to others and just to be authentically myself always in all aspects, not just my career. Because I really do believe that draws people to you and it just makes you a happier person to not try and conform to the image that you think people want to see because people don't know what they want to see. You have to show them.
Yeah, 100%. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology that you've found is helping your career right now.
I think the best resource will always be other artists, whether you find that online or in person. I just love being inspired by my friends and by my castmates. And I think appreciating the art of others can inform you as a performer, but also keeping in mind that there's a fine line between comparison and inspiration. That's when things get a little bit tricky. But
Mm.
I think if you can get inspired by other people to then build and do your own thing, I find that just to be the best resource. I love working in a collaborative setting because I just think it really enables you to elevate yourself through other people.
Yes, so good. The relationships that we build are so important, but all the collaboration as well. And that's really how the relationships are built and really fortified as well. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I think I'd mostly do things the same, but I would not have quit gymnastics or piano when I was a kid.
Me too. Not the
Yeah.
piano. I wish I would have just played piano. How about that? But gymnastics for sure. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Again, it's just to do the work and be yourself. I don't think there's any shortcut or formula. Everybody is going to have a different experience. Everyone's path is different. But I think you have to want it enough to work on it constantly. And at the same time, never lose the sense of what makes you you. Because again, I just believe that's what draws people to other people. That's where we get our magnetism and our charisma, is just being the best possible version of ourselves, not a sort of mediocre version of someone else.
Well said. And to wrap up this interview, Lisa, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
I am on Instagram. My handle is Golden Fin, which is a scrambled version of my name. I get that question a lot. I don't really have anything to promote at this time besides love and light. I hope we get more of it in the next coming months and years. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Check me out on Instagram. I'm not very active.
Brilliant. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the link to her Instagram in the description of this episode so you can easily connect with Lisa. And also be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone you know aspiring to create a career in the entertainment industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything that Lisa said in today's episode, all of those amazing takeaways that you can right now apply to your career. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that subscribe button. Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure to catch up and to have you on the show.
Yes, thank you. It's always fun to talk about this career in this industry, especially at a time when we're not getting to do it. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't miss an episode. Every guest drops more value and insight than any other resource out there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a rating and review. Also, be sure to head over to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. All the best to you.